My brother bet $50 he could make my sister cry before lunch, then laughed while our mom took notes on what hurt her most. When I finally told her this was sick, she snapped and said if she could just take a joke, everything would be fine. I stayed silent. That was 3 months ago. This morning, my sister was getting her revenge, and my mom was now the punching bag. My little sister cried when she was getting bullied, and I hated her for it. Growing up as the oldest of 4 meant I got everything the worst. Always ate the chocolate from the box that no one wanted. When something went wrong, my parents yelled at me first. Sometimes I would starve if there wasn't enough food for all of us. So by the time I turned 18, I was already extremely independent. I thought relying on someone for anything made you weak and intolerable. My parents had successfully raised us in a, if you want something done right, then do it yourself household. Meanwhile, Rachel was the baby of the family and she just never seemed to get with the program. At 24, she was still crying at every family gathering. Someone would crack a joke about her outfit and the waterworks would start. We'd be planning dinner and she'd have a breakdown about the restaurant choice. Even our extended family started calling her Drama Queen Rachel behind her back. The thing that unalived me was that she kept coming back. She'd text these long apologies afterward about how she was working on being less sensitive. She remembered everyone's birthdays and sent thoughtful cards. She drove mom to all her doctor appointments without being asked. But as soon as you put her in a room with the family, she'd fall apart within an hour like she was allergic to us or something. Last month, I was at Mike's place helping him transfer data to his new phone. He went to grab us beers and left his old phone on the counter still logged into everything. A notification popped up from a group chat, and I saw my sister Lisa's name with a laughing emoji. The preview said something about Rachel and points, and being his big sister gives me snooping rights. So I picked up the phone and opened the chat. The group was called Family, No Drama Queens, and it had everyone in it except for Rachel. Mike, Lisa, our other brother Tom, our cousins, aunts, uncles, even mom. The messages went back 3 years. My hands started shaking as I scrolled up. They had a point system for making Rachel cry. 20 points if you could do it before dinner. 50 if you triggered what they called a bathroom breakdown. There were screenshots of her apology texts with laughing reactions, videos of her crying at gatherings with commentary about whose technique worked best. I bet $50 she cries when we mention dad at Easter, from Tom. LMAO, she's already tearing up and we haven't even started eating, from Lisa. They planned specific triggers for each gathering. They'd coordinate their attacks. They'd literally practice insults to see which ones would break her fastest. Our cousin Amy posted a video from Grandma's birthday where they'd given Rachel the wrong address. She showed up an hour late to the right location, sobbing and apologizing, while everyone acted irritated with her. Suddenly, Mike walked back in. He instantly saw his phone in my hand. Poop, you saw the chat. You're an effing disgrace, I yelled at the top of my lungs. He shrugged and grabbed his phone back. Look, we just need somewhere to vent about her constant dramatics. It's not our fault she can't handle basic family interaction. I knew if we kept talking, I would do something regrettable, so I walked out without saying a word. I called mom that night and she defended it. Said Rachel brought it on herself by being so sensitive. Said if she could just take a joke like a normal person, they wouldn't need the group chat. That's when everything clicked. Rachel wasn't weak or dramatic. She was being systematically tortured by her entire family for entertainment. Every tear she shed was evidence of their success, not her failure. I called Rachel and told her everything. She went quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, I knew something was wrong, but they always told me I was being paranoid. I started recording our conversations to prove to myself I wasn't imagining things. She'd been gaslit so thoroughly she needed actual recordings to trust her own memory. She'd spent years trying to fix herself when she was never broken to begin with. We spent that Christmas just the two of us. She cried twice during dinner. Once when she burned the rolls and started apologizing frantically out of habit. Once when I told her she was the strongest person I knew for surviving what our family put her through. That's when she took her phone and showed me her call log with our grandmother from the past month. Dozens of calls, each over an hour long. She's been helping me document everything, Rachel said. She's been in her own chat with them for 15 years. They started with her. That's when I knew we had to take them down. Rachel and Elena spent the next 3 weeks at our grandmother's house, going through boxes she'd kept hidden in her attic for decades. Grandma's hands trembled as she pulled out journal after journal, each one filled with her neat handwriting, documenting patterns of cruelty that stretched back to when mom and her siblings were teenagers. I started writing everything down after your Aunt Carol stopped coming to holidays, Grandma explained, opening a faded blue notebook. She was 22 when she finally had enough. They did the same thing to her that they're doing to Rachel now. Elena flipped through pages filled with dates, quotes, and detailed accounts. Our grandmother had been meticulous, noting who said what, when they said it, and how Carol had reacted. The similarities to Rachel's experiences made my stomach turn. Why didn't you stop them? Elena asked, her voice tight with anger. Grandma's eyes filled with tears. I tried talking to your mother once. She told me I was being dramatic, that it was just family teasing. After that, they started excluding me from planning sessions. I could only watch and document. Rachel sat quietly beside me, methodically photographing each page with her phone. She'd barely spoken since discovering the extent of the conspiracy against her, but her movements were purposeful, determined. There's more, Grandma said, pulling out an old camcorder from a dusty box. I recorded some family gatherings in the early 2000s. I think you need to see these. We spent hours watching grainy footage of Christmas dinners and birthday parties from 20 years ago. There was Aunt Carol, young and vibrant, slowly dimming as family members picked apart her career choices, her boyfriend, her weight, the same coordinated attacks, the same betting pools, the same group chat predecessor in the form of past notes and whispered conferences. In one video, Carol broke down sobbing at Thanksgiving after Uncle James jokingly called her a failure for dropping out of law school. The camera caught Mom and Aunt Patricia high-fiving driving in the background. Carol sent me a letter last year, Grandma said, pulling out an envelope. She's married now, has 3 kids. She's happy, but she wrote that she still has nightmares about family gatherings. Rachel finally spoke. I've been saving money, she said quietly, for 3 years. I was going to disappear after Mom's birthday party next month. Just vanish. Start over somewhere they couldn't find me. Elena grabbed Rachel's hand. You're not going anywhere. We're going to fix this. How? Rachel asked. They'll just deny everything. Say we're being dramatic. That's when I remembered something. The family reunion, I said. It's in 6 weeks. Everyone will be there. Rachel shook her head frantically. I can't face them all at once. You won't be alone, Elena said firmly. We have a plan. Over the next few weeks, Rachel maintained her normal routine, responding to family texts with her usual apologetic tone. She even attended a small dinner at Mom's house, where she cried right on schedule when Lisa made a comment about her job. What they didn't know was that she was wearing a recording device Elena had ordered online. Meanwhile, Elena worked on accessing the family group chat. She remembered Mike had used the same password for everything since high school. His high school football jersey number followed by his ex-girlfriend's name. It took her 3 tries before she got in. The chat was worse than what I'd seen on Mike's phone. There were folders of screenshots going back years, betting spreadsheets tracking who could make Rachel cry fastest. Even a shared Google Drive labeled The Collection. Elena's face went pale as she clicked through the Drive folders. Oh my god, she whispered. It's not just Rachel. There were compilation videos with titles like Rachel's Greatest Hits, Christmas Edition, and Top 10 Bathroom Breakdowns. But there were other folders too. Derek 2015-2017. Marcus Summer Highlights. Trial Run, Megan. Megan's only 16, I said, feeling sick. They're already starting with her? Elena screenshot everything, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm backing all of this up. Multiple clouds, multiple accounts. The pre-reunion planning intensified in the chat. Tom posted, Rachel's been too stable lately. We need to up our game for the reunion. Lisa responded, I heard she's been seeing a therapist. Maybe we should work that angle. Mike added, I've got some material about her college roommate. That should do it. Aunt Patricia chimed in, save the big firearms for the main event. Let's do a test run at the pre-reunion dinner next week. Rachel attended that dinner wearing 2 recording devices, one in her purse and one sewn into her jacket lining. She sat quietly as Tom started his usual routine, making cutting remarks about her appearance, her career, her lack of a relationship. You're not crying, Tom said, frowning. What, finally grow a thicker skin? Rachel just smiled sadly and excused herself to the bathroom. They took it as a victory, not knowing she was texting us updates from the stall. Lisa noticed Elena had been protective of Rachel lately. Within days, the chat lit up with new theories. Elena's having a mental breakdown, Lisa posted. The stress from her job is getting to her. She's projecting onto Rachel. They started targeting Elena too, sending her concerned texts about her mental health, suggesting she see someone, asking if she was okay in that fake worried tone that really meant, we think you're losing it. Mike must have gotten suspicious because one night he tried to delete everything from the Google Drive, but Rachel had already backed it all up, following Elena's instructions to create multiple copies across different platforms. The night before the reunion, we met at Grandma's house for final preparations. Rachel's hands shook as she tested the wire Elena had bought. I don't know if I can do this, she said. Yes, you can, Grandma said firmly. You're stronger than all of them combined. You've survived 15 years of this. One more day, and it's over. Elena pulled up the live stream link she'd created. This goes to a private YouTube URL. I've already sent it to Cousin Brad in California, Aunt Marie in Florida, and 6 other family members who stopped coming to reunions years ago. They'll be watching. What about afterward? Rachel asked. When they find out what we did? I thought about all those videos, all those screenshots, all those messages planning the systematic destruction of multiple family members' mental health. They'll face consequences, I said. Real ones. Lisa teaches 5th grade. Mike coaches youth soccer. These aren't the kind of people who should be working with children. Rachel nodded slowly, steeling herself for what was to come. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the hunters would become the hunted. Tomorrow, Rachel would walk into that reunion not as their victim, but as their reckoning. But tonight, we sat together in Grandma's living room, surrounded by evidence of generational cruelty, and planned the end of an era. The family reunion they'd been eagerly planning would indeed be unforgettable, just not in the way they expected. The morning of the reunion arrived with an overcast sky that matched the tension in my chest. Rachel had stayed at Grandma's house the night before, and when I arrived at 6 a.m., she was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. I couldn't sleep, she admitted, her fingers tracing patterns on the wooden table. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. Elena arrived 30 minutes later with a bag full of equipment. She'd spent the previous evening testing everything multiple times, making sure the recording devices would work flawlessly. The wire she'd purchased was thin enough to be invisible under Rachel's sundress, and the backup recorder fit perfectly in the lining of her cardigan. Remember, Elena said as she helped Rachel get ready, you don't have to do anything different. Just be yourself. Let them think they're winning. Grandma sat in her rocking chair, clutching a small remote control. The speakers are all connected, she said. I've tested them 3 times. When you give me the signal, every room in that house will hear what I have to share. The reunion was being held at Aunt Patricia's sprawling suburban home, the same location where so many of Rachel's worst memories had been created. As we drove there in separate cars, I kept checking my phone to make sure the live stream link Elena had set up was working properly. Brad texted from California. We're watching. 7 of us here. Aunt Carol is with us. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Carol had driven 10 hours to be with other family members who'd escaped. They were all watching, waiting to see if we could finally end what had driven them away. We arrived at different times to avoid suspicion. I got there first, helping Patricia set up chairs in the backyard while she chattered about how dramatic things might get with Rachel there. I give her 20 minutes before the waterworks start, Patricia said, arranging arranging flowers on the table. James has some new material about her job situation. Mike and Tom arrived together, already laughing about something on Mike's phone. When Tom saw me, he grinned. Hey, wanna place a bet? I've got 50 on a bathroom breakdown before lunch. I forced myself to smile. Maybe later. Rachel arrived exactly on time, wearing the pale yellow sundress we'd chosen specifically because it had pockets deep enough to conceal recording equipment. She looked fragile walking up the driveway, but I knew the strength it took for her to be there. Rachel, Lisa called out with fake sweetness. So glad you could make it. We were worried you might have another one of your episodes. Rachel's smile was small but steady. I wouldn't miss it. The first hour proceeded like a twisted choreography. Family members took turns making seemingly innocent comments designed to chip away at Rachel's composure. Comments about her weight, her single status, her career, each one carefully crafted to hurt while maintaining plausible deniability. So Rachel, Uncle James said during appetizers, still working at that little nonprofit? Must be nice not having real responsibilities. I enjoy helping people, Rachel replied quietly. Sure, James continued, though I heard they might be downsizing. Tough economy for organizations that don't actually produce anything. I saw Rachel's jaw tighten, but she just nodded and excused herself to get some water. Tom and Lisa exchanged triumphant looks. Elena positioned herself strategically throughout the house, her phone ready to capture everything. She'd told everyone she was taking photos for a family album, which gave her the perfect excuse to be everywhere at once. The real escalation began during lunch. Patricia had seated Rachel between Tom and Mike, a deliberate arrangement that put her in the crossfire. As plates were passed around, Tom started in on Rachel's appearance. You know, Rachel, there's this new gym near your apartment. Maybe you should check it out. Might help with. He gestured vaguely at her body. Tom, Mom said, but her tone was amused rather than scolding. Mike jumped in. Speaking of self-improvement, whatever happened with that therapist you were seeing? Did she give up on you too? That's when Lisa delivered what they clearly thought would be the unaliving blow. Oh, that reminds me. I ran into someone from your college the other day. We talked about your old roommate. Such a tragedy what happened to her. The table went quiet. This was new territory, even for them. Rachel's college roommate had died by sewer slide their senior year, something Rachel rarely spoke about even to us. Rachel's hands trembled as she set down her fork. Please don't. I'm just saying, Lisa continued, her voice dripping with false concern. It must be hard knowing you were the last person she talked to. I heard you two had been fighting. That was a lie. Complete fabrication. But the damage was done. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, and she pushed back from the table. Bathroom breakdown, Tom called out gleefully. That's 50 points for Lisa. As Rachel fled inside, I caught Elena's eye. She nodded slightly, her phone capturing everything. The family erupted in laughter and congratulations for Lisa's technique. That was brilliant, Patricia said. Playing the dead roommate card? Genius. I've been saving that one, Lisa admitted proudly. Figured the reunion was worth bringing out the big firearms. Mom was actually taking notes. We should remember that for next time. Tragic events really are the fastest trigger. I excused myself to check on Rachel, finding her in the downstairs bathroom splashing water on her face. When she saw me, she pulled me inside and locked the door. I can't do this, she whispered. They're worse than ever. You're doing amazing, I told her. Just a little longer. Remember why we're here. She took several deep breaths, then pulled out her phone to check the recording app. Still running. The wire was still secure. Everything was working. They mentioned Stephanie, she said, her voice breaking. They're using my dead roommate as entertainment. I know, and everyone watching the live stream heard them do it. They're exposing themselves. Rachel nodded, steeling herself. We stayed in the bathroom for exactly 12 minutes, long enough for them to think they'd achieved a major victory. When we emerged, Rachel's eyes were red, her makeup slightly smudged. Perfect. The afternoon session moved to the backyard where Patricia had set up games. What looked like family fun was actually another coordinated attack. They'd rigged the trivia questions to highlight Rachel's failures, created a photo slideshow that mysteriously only included unflattering pictures of her, and even prepared a roast where everyone would share their favorite funny Rachel stories. But something else was happening too. Megan, our 16-year-old cousin, kept watching Rachel with an expression I couldn't quite read. She'd been quiet all day, sitting apart from the main group, her arms wrapped around herself despite the warm weather. During the roast, the stories got progressively crueler. Mike told about the time Rachel had a panic attack at his graduation and ruined the whole day. Tom shared how Rachel had cried at their father's funeral and made it all about herself. Each story was twisted, context removed, cruelty disguised as humor. That's when Megan suddenly stood up. Stop, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What's wrong, sweetie? Patricia asked, though her tone suggested annoyance rather than concern. Megan's hands were shaking as she pushed up the sleeves of her cardigan. There were scars on her arms, some old, some disturbingly fresh. You're doing it to me too, she said, for 3 years now, since I turned 13. The backyard went silent. This wasn't part of their script. Megan, honey, you're being dramatic, Patricia said, her voice sharp. Pull your sleeves down. No, Megan said, tears streaming down her face. I have the group chat, the one you made about me. Trial run. Megan, I've seen everything. Elena moved closer to Megan, her phone still recording. Rachel stood frozen, staring at the young girl who was showing the same pain she'd carried for years. That's different, Tom said quickly. You're just confused. Teenage hormones and all that. Megan pulled out her phone with trembling hands. Want me to read some messages? How about the one where Aunt Lisa bet $20 I'd cry at Christmas? Or when Mike said I was even easier than Rachel? The family erupted into chaos. Patricia lunged for Megan's phone, but Elena stepped between them. Tom started shouting about privacy violations. Lisa was frantically typing on her phone, probably trying to delete evidence. That's when Grandma appeared in the doorway, holding her remote control. Enough, she said, her voice carrying surprising authority. She pressed the button, and suddenly her voice filled the air from speakers throughout the house and yard. It was a recording recording from 15 years ago, her measured tone documenting the first time they'd made Carol cry at a family gathering. October 15th, 2008, Grandma's recorded voice said, Carol arrived at Thanksgiving dinner wearing a new dress. Patricia commented that it made her look desperate. James added that no dress could fix her personality. Within 40 minutes, Carol was crying in her car. The recording continued, date after date, incident after incident. Grandma had documented everything with the precision of a court reporter. The family stood frozen as their cruelty was laid bare in their grandmother's calm, steady voice. Turn it off, Mom screamed, but Grandma held the remote out of reach. 15 years, Grandma said. 15 years I've watched you torture your own family members for sport. Carol, Derek, Marcus, Rachel, and now Megan. How many more children are you planning to destroy? Mike made a move toward the house, probably to find and disconnect the speakers, but I blocked his path. Sit down, I said. We're not done. Elena pulled up the live stream on her tablet, showing the viewer count. 43 family members are watching right now, she announced, including Carol, Derek, and Marcus. They've seen everything. The color drained from Patricia's face. You're live streaming this? Every second, Elena confirmed, including your confession about using a dead girl's sewer slide as entertainment. That's when everything truly unraveled. Tom tried to grab Elena's tablet, but Rachel stepped forward, no longer the cowering victim they expected. Don't touch her, Rachel said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. Don't touch any of us ever again. You manipulative little witch, Lisa snarled. You planned this whole thing. No, Rachel said. You planned this. For years. We just finally decided to show everyone what you've been doing. Mike was typing furiously on his phone. The drive is gone, he said, panic in his voice. Everything's been deleted. Elena smiled coldly. From your account maybe, but I backed up everything 3 weeks ago. Every video, every screenshot, every betting spreadsheet, it's all safe. The younger cousins were crying now, some from shock, others from recognition. A few tentatively moved closer to Megan and Rachel, forming an unconscious alliance of victims. This is insane, Tom said. We were just joking around. Family teasing. Everyone does it. No, Grandma said firmly. Families don't create point systems for making children cry. They don't bet money on causing mental breakdowns. They don't compile videos of their relatives' pain for entertainment. Patricia turned on Mom. This is your fault. Your kids started this whole victim mentality. Mom's face crumbled. For the first time, she seemed to truly see what they'd been doing. Oh God, she whispered. Rachel, I'm so sorry. I didn't. You thought it was funny, Rachel said quietly. You took notes on the best ways to hurt me. The sound of a car door slamming made everyone turn. A woman walked up the driveway, older now but unmistakably Carol. Behind her was a man in his 40s wearing a kind expression. Hello, family, Carol said, her voice steady but cold. I heard there was a reunion. Patricia gasped. Carol, what are you doing here? I've been watching, Carol said, gesturing to Elena's tablet. When I saw you doing to Megan what you did to me, I couldn't stay away anymore. The man beside her stepped forward. I'm Dr. Christopher Reeves, Carol's husband. I'm also a therapist specializing in family trauma and narcissistic abuse patterns. We don't need some quack doctor, James spat. Christopher remained calm. I'm not here in a professional capacity. I'm here as someone who spent 10 years helping my wife heal from what you people did to her. And now I'm watching you do it to children. Megan ran to Carol, who wrapped her arms around the teenager. It's okay, Carol whispered. You're not alone anymore. The family split into factions. Some, like Mom, seemed genuinely horrified by the revelation of what they'd been part of. Others, like Tom and Lisa, remained defiant, insisting everyone was overreacting. You're all crazy, Lisa shouted. This is probably illegal, recording us without consent. Elena pulled out a piece of paper. Actually, we're in a one-party consent state. Everything we recorded is perfectly legal, unlike what you've been doing to minors. That's when the real consequences began. Rachel pulled out her phone and started sending emails, her fingers steady now. What are you doing? Mike demanded. Sending the evidence, Rachel said calmly. To your soccer league, Mike. To the school board where Lisa teaches. To every employer and organization you're affiliated with. You can't, Tom shouted. You'll ruin our lives. Like you tried to ruin mine? Rachel asked. The difference is, I'm just showing people who you really are. Patricia's phone started ringing. Then Lisa's. Then Mike's. The real world was already responding to the evidence of their cruelty. As the afternoon dissolved into chaos, with family members screaming, crying, and turning on each other, Rachel stood in the center of it all, finally free from their power. She wasn't crying now. She was standing tall, surrounded by the people who truly loved her. Elena, Grandma, Carol, and the other survivors who were finally seeing justice. The reunion continued for another hour, but the power dynamic had completely shifted. The hunters had become the hunted, exposed, and facing consequences they'd never imagined. And Rachel, the girl they'd tortured for entertainment, had become their reckoning. As we finally left that house of horrors, Rachel linked arms with Megan and the other young cousins who'd been targeted. We're going to be okay, she told them. All of us. We're going to heal from this. Behind us, the family that had once seemed so powerful was crumbling, their cruelty finally exposed to the light. The reunion they'd planned so carefully had indeed become unforgettable, just not in the way they'd intended. The chaos after we left Patricia's house was immediate and relentless. My phone buzzed nonstop as family members who hadn't been at the reunion discovered the live stream link being shared across social media. Rachel sat in my backseat with Megan, both of them scrolling through incoming messages while Elena drove. Lisa's principal just emailed me back, Rachel said, her voice steady but exhausted. He wants to meet Monday morning to discuss the evidence. Megan's phone rang. She looked at the screen and shrank back. It's my mom. Don't answer, Carol said from the passenger seat. She'd insisted on following us, leaving her husband Christopher to handle the aftermath at Patricia's house. She'll try to manipulate you into recanting. We pulled into a restaurant parking lot to regroup. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving us all shaky and uncertain about what came next. text. Rachel kept refreshing her email, watching responses pour in from the various organizations she'd contacted. Mike's youth league director wants the full video files, she read aloud. Says they're launching an immediate investigation. Elena's phone chimed with a notification. The Google Drive backup I made? Someone's trying to access it with Mike's credentials. He must be trying to see what we have. Let him try, I said. The damage is already done. Carol turned to face us from the front seat. Listen carefully. They're going to come at you hard over the next few days. They'll use every manipulation tactic they know. Guilt, threats, fake apologies, promises to change. Don't fall for any of it. Her phone lit up with a call from Patricia. She declined it immediately. See, they're already starting. We decided to go to Elena's apartment since it was the only place none of the family knew about. She'd moved there 6 months ago and had deliberately never given anyone the address. As we drove, Rachel's phone rang constantly. Tom, Mom, Lisa, Mike, aunts and uncles we barely spoke to anymore. She turned it to silent and tucked it away. At Elena's place, we set up laptops and phones on her dining table like a makeshift command center. Carol called her husband to check in while we started organizing the evidence into folders for each family member who'd participated in the abuse. Patricia's threatening to call the police, Christopher reported over speakerphone. Says you're harassing the family and illegally recording them. Let her, Elena said. I've already consulted with a lawyer friend. We're completely within our rights. Megan sat quietly on the couch, still processing everything. Rachel sat beside her, not saying anything, just being present. I watched them and thought about all the years Rachel had suffered alone, believing she was the problem. The next few hours were a blur of emails, phone calls, and documentation. Rachel methodically sent evidence packages to every relevant authority. Mike's soccer league, Lisa's school district, Tom's employer where he worked in human resources. Each email was carefully worded, professional, with video clips and screenshots attached. I'm not trying to destroy their lives, Rachel said at one point, looking up from her laptop. I just want them to face consequences. Real ones. Carol nodded. That's the difference between justice and revenge. You're not making things up or exaggerating. You're simply showing people who they really are. Around midnight, Elena's doorbell rang. We all froze. Nobody should know this address. Elena checked her security camera app and her face went pale. It's Mom, she said. We debated whether to answer. Finally, I went to the door but kept the chain on. Mom stood in the hallway, looking older than I'd ever seen her. Her makeup was smeared, her usually perfect hair disheveled. Please, she said. I need to talk to Rachel. She doesn't want to see you, I said. I know, I understand, but please, just 5 minutes. I'll stay in the hallway if you want. I looked back at Rachel, who had come to stand behind me. She studied Mom's face for a long moment, then nodded slightly. Mom's words came out in a rush. I've been driving around for hours thinking, remembering things, like when I was 15 and my siblings made me cry at Christmas, and when I was 20 and they humiliated me in front of my first boyfriend. I forgot. I actually forgot what it felt like because I became one of them instead. Rachel's expression didn't change. She just listened. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Mom continued. I know I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that I called Tom and Lisa and Mike tonight, told them if they contact you again, they'll be dealing with me, and I'm going to therapy. Real therapy, not just saying it. She pulled out an envelope and held it through the gap in the door. This is every screenshot I had from that horrible chat. Evidence of my participation. Use it however you need to. Rachel took the envelope but didn't say anything. Mom waited a moment longer, then turned and walked away. We watched through the peephole as she got in the elevator. Do you believe her? Megan asked quietly. I don't know, Rachel said, and right now, it doesn't matter. Her journey is her own. The next morning brought a new wave of chaos. Lisa's principal had placed her on administrative leave pending investigation. Mike's youth soccer league had suspended him immediately. Tom's HR department had launched an internal review. The family group chat, we learned from a cousin who screenshot it before leaving, had devolved into accusations and finger-pointing. Patricia tried a different approach, showing up at Grandma's house with flowers and tears. Grandma recorded the entire interaction on her phone and sent it to us. Patricia's performance was Oscar-worthy, complete with promises of family therapy and claims that it had all been misunderstood. I've seen this act before, Grandma told her. You did the same thing after Carol left. Promised to change, cried pretty tears, then went right back to your cruel games. Not this time. By day 3, the family had split into clear factions. Some, like Mom and a handful of cousins, seemed genuinely committed to understanding what they'd done. Others, led by Patricia and James, had circled the wagons, creating a new group chat called Real Family Only, where they continued to paint themselves as victims. Mike tried to salvage his coaching position by claiming the videos were edited and taken out of context. The league asked for the full, unedited files, which Elena happily provided. His suspension became permanent termination. Lisa's situation exploded when parents at her school discovered the evidence. A group of mothers who'd always felt something was off about her created a petition demanding her removal. The school board scheduled an emergency meeting. Tom's employer concluded their investigation by moving him to a position with no direct reports, citing concerns about his judgment and treatment of others. He blamed Rachel in a voicemail that Elena immediately saved as evidence. A week after the reunion, we met at a coffee shop to discuss next steps. Rachel had dark circles under her eyes but seemed lighter somehow, like she'd set down a weight she'd carried for years. Derek reached out, she said, showing us a Facebook message. He watched the live stream from Seattle, says he's been in therapy for 5 years dealing with what the family did to him. More victims had started coming forward, cousins we'd lost touch with, family friends who'd mysteriously stopped coming around. Each had their own story of being targeted, humiliated, and gaslit into believing they were too sensitive. Carol had started a private Facebook group for family abuse survivors. Within days, it had dozens of members, all sharing their experiences and supporting each other. Megan became one of the most active participants, finally able to talk about her pain with people who understood. I keep thinking about the others, Megan Megan said during one of our meetings. The younger cousins who are just starting to be targeted. We have to protect them. That became Rachel's focus. She created a detailed document outlining the family's patterns and tactics, which she shared with every parent of young children in the extended family. Some dismissed it, but others thanked her for the warning. The pushback intensified as consequences mounted. Patricia tried to turn Grandma's neighbors against her, spreading rumors about elder abuse. James threatened legal action that never materialized. Lisa's teaching career effectively ended when the school board voted not to renew her contract. But for every attack, the Survivor Network grew stronger. Carol's husband, Christopher, offered free consultations to family members seeking therapy. A cousin who was a lawyer provided pro bono advice about restraining orders and cease and desist letters. 3 weeks after the reunion, Rachel got an unexpected call. It was from a producer at a podcast that focused on family dysfunction and healing. They'd seen the story spreading on social media and wanted to interview her about systematic family abuse. I don't know if I'm ready, Rachel admitted to us over dinner. You don't have to be, Elena said. But think about all the people who might be living through the same thing, thinking they're alone. Rachel did the interview. Her voice shook at first, but as she told her story, she grew stronger. The episode went viral, leading to hundreds of emails from people sharing their own experiences with toxic family dynamics. Mike made one last attempt to intimidate Rachel, showing up at her workplace. Security removed him immediately, and Rachel's boss, who'd heard the whole story, banned him from the premises. His public meltdown was caught on security cameras, further damaging his reputation. The family's traditional Thanksgiving planning began in October. Patricia sent invitations to the usual suspects, pointedly excluding anyone who'd sided with Rachel. The response was tepid. Many simply didn't reply. Others declined with vague excuses. They're realizing their power is gone, Carol observed during one of our video calls. Without victims to torment, they're just a bunch of bitter people eating turkey together. Rachel decided to host her own Thanksgiving. She invited Grandma, Elena, me, Carol, and her family, Megan, Derek, who flew in from Seattle, and several cousins who'd reached out after the reunion. It was smaller than the traditional gathering, but filled with genuine warmth. I never thought I'd enjoy a family holiday, Derek said, raising his glass of sparkling cider, but this actually feels like what family should be. The original Thanksgiving at Patricia's house, we heard later, was a disaster. Only 8 people showed up. Tom and Lisa spent the entire time complaining about their situations. Patricia drank too much wine and cried about how ungrateful everyone was. James left early after an argument about whose fault everything was. Meanwhile, our gathering lasted well into the evening. People shared stories, both painful and hopeful. Megan showed everyone her new therapist's office and talked about her progress. Rachel mentioned she'd started writing a blog about recognizing and escaping family abuse patterns. The first post already has 1,000 shares, she said, blushing slightly. People keep messaging me saying it helped them understand their own situations. As December arrived, the contrast between the two family factions became stark. The old guard continued their patterns with a dwindling audience, while the Survivor Network flourished. Rachel's blog grew rapidly, becoming a resource for people dealing with similar dynamics. Lisa made a desperate attempt to rehabilitate her image by starting her own blog about being canceled by family. It backfired spectacularly when readers found Rachel's evidence and flooded Lisa's comments with criticism. She deleted it within a week. 2 months after the reunion, something unexpected happened. 3 of Tom's co-workers reached out to Rachel privately. They'd noticed similar patterns in how he treated certain colleagues and wanted advice on documenting it. Rachel connected them with resources while maintaining boundaries about her involvement. The ripple effects continued. Mike's ex-girlfriend contacted Elena to share her own experiences with his manipulation. Patricia's book club disbanded after members learned about her behavior. James's wife filed for separation, citing his cruelty toward their children as a major factor. But the most significant change was in the survivors themselves. Megan joined her school's peer counseling program. Derek started volunteering with a men's mental health organization. Carol expanded her support group to include weekly video meetings for those who couldn't attend in person. Rachel's transformation was the most remarkable. The woman who once apologized for existing now spoke confidently about boundaries and self-worth. Her blog evolved into a broader platform discussing family trauma, attracting guest writers and expert contributors. I got an email from a publisher, she told us one evening, looking stunned. They want to discuss turning the blog into a book. The old family structure made one final coordinated attempt to regain control. They created a website portraying themselves as victims of a smear campaign, complete with heavily edited videos and fabricated evidence. It lasted exactly 4 days before their hosting company removed it for violating terms of service. As spring approached, life settled into new patterns. Rachel's book deal materialized. Elena got promoted at work, no longer held back by the stress of family dynamics. I started volunteering with Carol's support group, finding purpose in helping others recognize toxic patterns. Grandma updated her will as promised, ensuring her assets would go only to family members who'd shown growth and accountability. The excluded relatives threatened legal challenges but never followed through, knowing the evidence against them would become public in court. The 1-year anniversary of the reunion approached with mixed emotions. Rachel organized a gathering for survivors and allies, calling it a chosen family celebration. The response overwhelmed her. People flew in from across the country, united by shared experience and mutual support. Patricia sent a letter attempting to guilt Rachel about destroying the family. Rachel read it to the group, who helped her craft a simple response. The family destroyed itself. I just turned on the lights. As we prepared for the celebration, deliveries arrived throughout the day. Flowers from Derek, champagne from Brad in California, a cake from cousins who couldn't attend. Each gift carried messages of support and gratitude. That evening, as 43 people gathered in a rented community center, Rachel stood to speak. Her hands were steady, everybody, her voice clear. She talked about the journey from victim to survivor to advocate. She thanked everyone who'd stood by her and acknowledged those still finding their way. Healing isn't linear, she said. Some days are harder than others, but we're proof that cycles can be broken, that patterns can change, that chosen family can be stronger than blood. The celebration continued late into the night.